Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today in the episode 2 of Gab with Garima. That sounds really weird. Also, before we kind of get started on this, I really want to tell you that this is supposed to be super interactive. I want to hear from you. I want to know whether you guys have faced any of these things or seen these things. And actually, what do you guys think of our music, our intro music and all that? Does it work for you? Do you think we should change it a little bit? Would love to hear any of your comments. So today, I want to take it back a little bit and talk about door-to-door sales and how that's really shaped my entire career, my entire life. And I think about it all the time. So really wanted to talk a little bit about that and find out from y'all what your experience is. But maybe you guys don't know, so tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up mostly in Florida and I went to college up in Boston. So I went to Boston University and my degree is in advertising and mass communications. And my entire goal in life through my entire time in college was to create a Super Bowl ad. It just seemed like the coolest thing to do. I wanted to make a Super Bowl ad and I wanted to write the copy for it. I actually wanted to be an account executive and a copywriter for a Super Bowl campaign. And very quickly, so I graduated early. I graduated when I was only 19, which sounds crazy, but more just kind of a dork. So I graduated and I thought I was going to go work for an ad agency. And my husband, then boyfriend, lived in Miami. So I moved from Boston down to Miami and went to go interview at a bunch of ad agencies. And quickly I found out that it just wasn't the life that I wanted. It was extremely corporate for me. And I felt like when I would ask questions about things like advancement and what do I need to do to move up and things like that, I would get kind of blank stares. You got to be here for a while and we'll see what happens. And that's kind of how I felt over and over and over again. So I went on this interview for this company in Miami called Strictly Advertising. And Julie, Patty, if anybody's listening, give me a shout. But I went to this interview called Strictly Advertising in Miami. And this woman who was interviewing me, Julie Edmonds, was amazing. And she was successful. She owned her own company. And she had really told me that direct marketing was what she did and that I should come in for another interview. So I went on the second interview and it was a door-to-door commission sales position. But I was sold. I was like, man, I can do this. I can do this. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. I can totally do this. This seems easy. And then she told me, oh, you can make unlimited income. And I was like, wow, that sounds great. And if you do it well, then maybe you can even open your own company. I was like, well, that's even better. And, again, I was super cocky and not sure about life. And so I was really excited to hear that I could do these things, right? So I was like, okay, cool. So I'm going to do this. I called my parents and I said, oh my gosh, hey, Devin, it's good to see you. Devin's actually someone who worked with me in sales as well, many, many years ago. But so I thought that I called my parents. I said, hey, I'm going to take this job. And they're like, doing what? What ad agency did you decide on? I said, well, I actually decided to work in commission only sales. I'm going to go door to door. And my dad was not exactly thrilled. It wasn't what he wanted to hear after sending me to Boston to go to college, after ensuring that I studied hard my whole life. He wasn't super excited about me going into door-to-door sales, to say the least. But I did it anyway. I was like, this is what I'm going to do, and it's going to be amazing, and I'm super, super excited. So I started, and the campaign at the time was Bell South. So we were literally going door to door in Miami, business to business, and it was cold calling. There were no appointments. There was nothing. It was seeing anywhere from 50 to 100 new businesses a day. And if those of you who know Miami, I was working in areas like Alapata, Carroll City, Hialeah Gardens, and I was going door to door, and that's what I did. And my whole goal was to convince business owners that they needed to either switch to Bell South or add long distance or add features to their plan or something like that. So it was, I guess, humbling, but I didn't know that at the time, right? At the time, I was like, this is my job and this is what I'm going to do. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Even when my parents said, oh my gosh, are you sure you want to do this? I didn't know that there was anything that could even be perceived as negative. And growing up, and I've been very lucky. I grew up in a really, great family. I went to a prep school. I had never experienced not like any other kind of life. I was very much in a bubble. I was naive. I was arrogant. I was dumb. Um, so I thought, well, this will be easy. And I remember going out in the field and literally going business to business and getting kicked out and having people say, "What are you doing here?" It says no solicitation. Like, what are you doing here? Having doors slammed on my face. Someone telling me that they would go grab their gun. Um, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, well, but I just graduated. I have this great degree. I did so well in school. I don't understand. Like, why are people treating me like that? And of course it wasn't everybody. Most people are actually really nice, especially face to face. But it was a lot of people that would just kind of kick you out and be like, don't you see the sign? It says no solicitation. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see the sign. And by the way, I'm here from Bell South. And you try to turn that conversation around. But the very first thing that I learned very quickly was that nobody cared how smart I was. Nobody cared what grades I got. Nobody cared that I graduated early. Nobody cared. It didn't matter. My intelligence meant nothing. And that's truly a thing in life. Your intelligence means nothing to anyone else if you're not diligent. You can be the smartest person in the room. You can know all the answers. You can be Einstein, but if you're not willing to do the work and put the work in to actually succeed and to help people out, nobody cares. And that was a really, really, really hard lesson for me. I think it took me at least 3 to 4 months at a minimum of seeing 70 to 100 doors a day. And to those of you who have not done that in the Florida sun, try it, even for a day, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I had to realize every single day that if I didn't work hard, it didn't matter. And that, yeah, I could do a calculus equation, but if I couldn't sell an account, or if I couldn't convince someone why they should do business with me, then it really didn't make a difference. And that's not just in sales or door-to-door sales. I've seen that throughout my career, that even if I have the answers, even if I may know something or maybe have done the research, if I'm not willing to put that work in, then how is anybody going to trust me or believe in me or ask me to get something done? Whether that's my colleagues, whether that's my clients, my partners, anyone else, diligence is more important than intelligence every single time. So if you take nothing away, and I would love to know again what you guys think about that, shout out, but like, do you guys agree with that? Has anybody felt differently? And look, I know that there's a ton of geniuses. There's super smart people everywhere, but you never hear about the ones who actually don't do anything without intelligence. So if you're thinking that you can coast through things just because, just smarter than the average Joe, it doesn't matter. And the world is very evening. As we've seen in this recent pandemic and everything else, like everything levels out. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that you're smarter, cooler, no more. If you're not willing to work hard, do everything else, it doesn't matter. So that's my first lesson. So the next thing that I learned when I was out in the field is, so every day we'd go out and I would go to see as many businesses as I possibly could. And I was like, man, sometimes this sucks, right? Like sometimes this totally 100% sucks. And I've gone to 70 businesses and every single person says no. And so what's the point? Why do I need to do this? So the second really important lesson is believing in laws, or believing in the law of averages. And again, this is not just for sales, but it's in life. So let's say that you're recruiting to fill a position, which just happened with us, by the way. We're trying to fill a position for a digital content manager. And we got 196 applicants. And that's a lot. But believing in that law of averages, believing that if you truly fill that funnel with as many possible prospects, with as many possible candidates, as many possible partners, as many possible ideas, you will end up with the best one. But if you focus on just one, if you focus on, hey, all I'm going to do today is see this one door, and I expect that door to sign up with me. And if they don't sign up, I'm not going to keep going. If you expect that anywhere in life, it's not going to work out for you. You have to believe that There is a law of averages. And the best way to succeed is by filling every part of your funnel with as much as possible. We often get stuck in things like groupthink, right? Like we get into a group and we're like, oh my gosh, like that's a great idea. And let's all think that way. And then you get a little further down the path and realize that it didn't work. And then you're like, man, how come I didn't call that out when I was in that meeting? And often it's just because you were a subject to groupthink. You only had one idea in the funnel. And so therefore, that's the idea that came out at the end. So when you're looking to solve problems, you're looking to do anything, the idea of brainstorming, and you think back to grade school or grammar school and you had to outline every paper. Why? That wasn't just an exercise in futility. It was because you need to start with that idea, with as many possible ideas, the big brainstorm, the big giant ideas, and then narrow it down, because the law of averages works. There is going to be one, if you see every single door, there's going to be one that signs up if you believe in it. And if you have a million ideas, there's going to be one that's good. If you send out 3,000 emails, there's going to be one person who'll sign up, but you have to believe in that law. You have to commit to filling that funnel every single day. And hey, Amrish, hi Zoya. Thanks also for joining. So that's another thing I learned, I guess, from the field. So the next one, and this one is probably the hardest for me. This one was, I always thought, so the other thing I wanted to do before I wanted to go into advertising is I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And during college, I actually taught. So I taught dance at Aria Dance Academy for a long time. And I also taught third grade classes for after school. So I did that through college. And I thought I was a great teacher. I thought that I was amazing at training and teaching people. I was like, man, people are just happy and they get it. And I'm just so good at this. I'm amazing. But I wasn't, because in order to move forward where I was working and in sales, you had to be the best trainer as well. It didn't matter if you were the best salesperson, which quickly, once I figured out that all I had to do was work really, really, really hard and work harder than anybody else. My diligence was most important. And I had to believe in the law of averages. Once I figured out those two things, I was like, man, I'm great at this. And sales became really easy. But then I had to train people, and I had to show that I was the best trainer there, right? I had to get promoted by proving that I was the best trainer and by teaching others to succeed, right? And I thought that was awesome. I still do. If anybody ever asks me, like, what is my biggest achievement in life, I will always say, and I really believe it's the people that I have been able to train. I have worked with some amazing, fantastic, brilliant individuals, and I've had the opportunity to train them and to work with them and to help their lives in some way, just like they help mine. And that's just the coolest thing ever. So I know that's a little tangent, but I needed to learn how to train people. And I thought that if I just show people how to do this, I'm just going to take someone out in the field with me and I'm just going to make them go door to door with me. And I'm just going to show them. I'm going to do this every single day and I'm just going to show them. And they weren't getting it. I didn't have a single person ever succeed doing that. And I was like, I don't get it. I take them out and I'm successful every day. I bring back sales and I don't get it. And then I had this one person who I hired, who is still one of my closest friends, Thais, who I hired. And she said, I'm not going to quit. She said, look, you're not training me very well. And I'm not successful at this, which is probably your fault, but I'm not going to give up. You're going to have to keep training me. With everybody else, I would train them for 3, 4, 5 days and they would quit because I was terrible. Thais, on the other hand, didn't. She stayed. Every single day she showed up and she stayed. And she taught me that training wasn't about my personality. It was about a system. I couldn't train Thais or anyone else to sound like me, be me. And there is nothing wrong with everybody has a different personality. Everybody has a different environment, a different culture that they came from, right? And you kind of look at that and you're like, why don't you get this, right? And Dion, you get it. Yeah, the struggle was real. It's hard to train people. And I'm like, why is this so hard? Why aren't you getting it? I'm telling you what to do. I'm showing you what's happening. And then Thais taught me that she said, okay, no, but explain it to me. Why are you doing this? And why do you say this thing? And why do you ask for this information? And why do you always say that? And I had to think about it because some of the things we do innately, right? When you learn to do something and become good at it, you do it innately, right? Like if you asked the top basketball player to explain how he gets a shot in, I think that would be hard for him because he start his muscle memory and everything else is kicked in and he does it innately and it just works for him, right? So I didn't know how to teach that because I had figured it out and it had taken me months to do so. Guys, it wasn't easy. It took me months to do so. But once I figured it out, I just kind of knew it. And I had a spiel and I said it and it worked. Sometimes it didn't. And I sold customers and that was it. But when she started asking me things like, well, but why do you just tell them to grab you their bill? And I was like, oh, well, I found that when I asked, hey, if you don't mind, could you, it gives someone an opportunity to say no. I was like, man, that's it. It's a system. And she was my guinea pig. And like I said, she's still one of my best friends. But she taught me that I needed a system, that I can't teach someone just to be me. That's not fair. And it's not right. And it doesn't take into account the entire person, right? So now you look at it in every role. The best thing about being a leader and being a manager is the opinions and the people that you're surrounded with. And if you don't believe that, you should not be in management and you shouldn't lead. But if you are leading people and that's what you want to do, the most exciting part of it is learning from the people around you and hearing their opinions, right? And having people who are smarter in the room than you are. But guess what? They still have to learn from you as well. And you still have to be able to train them on the information, the systems that you need them to know. So are you going to train them just, hey, just do what I do and do it like me, and that's just the way that it is? No, it's not going to work. And people wonder why maybe you have a person who's really, really, really good at something, and you're like, man, but they're a terrible manager. And it usually comes down to the fact that they don't know how to systemize or productize what they're doing. It has become so innate for them that they don't know how to do that. And that is what training is. Fundamentally, training is a system. Training is a process. Leading is a system. It is a process. It is not all about just personality and charisma. That doesn't work. People don't understand it and it doesn't translate, and people have different ways of hearing and communicating and learning. So if you're not taking that into consideration, you're actually doing not just yourself a disservice, but anybody who's ever worked with you. So once I learned to systematize how I was selling, it was easy. All of a sudden, so it took me 6 months with Thais, by the way. This girl, instead of quitting after a week, she stuck with me for 6 months to get me to learn how to be a great trainer. I still owe her so much for that because she stepped by my side through the whole thing. And I looked up to leaders around me, right? So I looked up to Patricia, who's the person who trained me, and Julie, who was my boss. And I was like, man, how do they do this? And they broke everything down really simply. They gave me 2 or 3 steps for everything I needed to know. And that's how I had learned it. I had just forgot when I was training. And you have to find your own voice, your own way of leadership, your own authentic ability to lead. It's not the same as everybody else. You can't just pull 3 steps off of Google and wonder why that doesn't work. You just have to think through everything that you do and the process in which you do it in and ask yourself why. Well, why do I do that? Oh, what is that good? Is that bad? Does it matter? So super important. So that's the, probably, like I said, that was the hardest pill for me to swallow. But my final tip is one that I got from the field as well, because all of this came from true door-to-door sales, is consistency. And this consistency is in everything. So we used to have on our wall in this first sales office that I worked in, and it used to say, keep a great attitude, right? Like that was step number 1. Or have a great attitude, have a positive attitude, something like that. And then like step number, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, something like that was maintain a great attitude. I was like, hold on, wait a second. You want me to have a great attitude? Well, I do. But what do you mean maintain a great attitude? Of course I will, because you told me to have a great attitude. Well, no, it's very easy to change how we are throughout the day. It's very easy to have ebbs and flows like this of emotion. It's very easy to get frustrated. It's very easy to not give, it's very easy to talk to a client or an employee or a partner and have a terrible conversation and then take that into the next call. It's so easy to do that. I mean, it's one of the, it just happens all the time. Like it's human nature, right? Like you get pissed off, your kids piss you off. Hey, Chris, I loved working with you too. Thanks for that. But it happens all the time, right? Like, oh my God, my kids have totally pissed me off. And now I have to get on this client call and you get on, like, oh, hi. Or you didn't sleep last night and you get on your first call in the morning, you're like, okay, guys, what are we supposed to talk about, right? That's not consistent. And that lack of consistency will always be a problem in your success in every single part of your life. If you're not consistent with your attitude, then let's talk about that for a second. Let's say that you're out in the field like me, right? You're on your 100th door and now it's door number 101 and you're so pissed. It's hot. It's Florida. You're sweating. It's 96 degrees. Your suit is sticking to you. Every single person has said no. The last person you saw told you that they were going to grab a gun and you're angry and you're just upset. And maybe they've called you names and you are mad. And you go to that 101 door because you're going to check it off your list. You're like, hey, I'm here to help you. Do you think that that person, even if they were a possible customer, is going to sign up with you? No, they don't care because you didn't give them that consistent attitude. Now let's talk about how that transfers into leadership. You know, if you deal with your employees in an inconsistent manner, forget employees, colleagues, anybody else in an inconsistent manner, where today you're really, really a happy, fun person, and tomorrow you're this demanding, freaking out type of person, nobody knows where you're going to be, and they will consistently be walking on eggshells with you. And that's a terrible and toxic work environment, and nobody wants to be there. So managing your emotions and keeping constant in what you're doing, and even with your messaging. So if your messaging is, hey, black is my favorite color, black is my favorite color, black is my favorite color. If that's your messaging, you can't come in the next day and say, actually, it's white, because nobody's going to understand and they won't be able to pivot. Now, if you have a reason for making that change and you want to discuss that, then have a discussion and make sure it's collaborative. But don't go from black's my favorite, I love it, and everything else sucks, to actually my favorite color is white and everything else sucks. Not consistent. And lack of consistency in messages is why I have seen the vast majority of anybody I've ever seen fail is because of inconsistency. Their work is inconsistent, so sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's not. Their attitude is inconsistent. Their work ethic is inconsistent. Those things are all going to lead to your long-term success. So I hope that that helps you. I think about being in the field a lot. I think that it was one of the most, I learned the most from being on the field by far. I mean, out of all of my positions, and that was a long time ago, that was 18 years ago, actually, it was in 2002. What I learned from those few years of being out in the field, it was years, guys. This wasn't something I did for a few months. This was years. And it was years of people saying no. It was years of my parents saying it was a horrible idea, my friends questioning what I did, people looking down on me because I was in door-to-door sales. And it was years. But that experience and that taught me everything that I ever needed to know about life. And anytime I think that something is challenging or crazy or hard, I think about walking around in Florida in a suit, in Miami, in really crazy neighborhoods, and having to go to 100 new doors. No, that was hard, but it was so rewarding. It was so rewarding and it was so amazing. And so if any of you have the opportunity to even take one day out in the field, I highly recommend it. I know that sounds crazy for most people, but I highly, highly recommend it. And I know that no matter whatever happens in my life, ever, right? Like if I lose my job, I lose everything, I know that I can always rely on those skills. I can go buy 300 pens and take them door to door. I can do that. I know that I have that in my backpack, and that's kind of cool. It's nice to know that I can always generate revenue for myself and for my family as needed. And that's what I got from door-to-door sales. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything? I know we're about to end. So does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Does anybody want to tell me how maybe it worked for them or anything, what job influenced them the most? Anybody? Don't all speak at once. Devin, it's great. Yeah, you agree too. So Devin, he's here, guys watching, and he and I started working together probably in 2004, and he started in sales as well. And he's this crazy successful dude doing amazing things all over. And he started in the field, and it was his first job out of college. Definitely not what he signed up for when he was going into school for computers. But guess what? He was amazing at it. And these are just the things, and the people I met during that time, all of them I'm still in touch with. So it was a great experience, and I definitely think it shaped my entire world. And I hope that this will help you as it helped me. And maybe you won't need this several years out in the field like I did. But thanks, guys, so much for joining. And for everybody at Sidcore who was able to teach me all of these things, I cannot even tell you how much I think about all of you. Thais, Julie, Patty, all of you. I think of you all the time and how much you shaped my life. So thanks, guys, and I really appreciate your time. Bye.